Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GRAPPL Weekend Show for Thursday, the 30th of April, 2026. I'm Benno.
And I'm JP.
And we are back after what feels like a break, JP, although, as a few people pointed out, we said we were taking a break and then uploaded 400 shows still, regardless. Retro's up, Stone Cold Crazy. It's all Matty adjacent programming. Matty Mania Extra is up as well, but it feels a while since we've talked the current affairs, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, I don't know. After a couple of Champions League games, I'm just living hand to mouth, like nervous tension, sort of going through me. But somehow got away with a 1-1 draw where all three penalties were kind of soft, and I just wish none of them had actually been given, because then I felt a reason to be slightly pissed off at the end. But I got over it pretty quickly. So other than that, sunshine in here for once. I'm assuming it's nowhere near the levels of sunshine you're getting now. How is it? Still humidity central?
Not too bad, to be honest. Like, the biggest concern I've got right now, by the way, what you described there with Arsenal is how my FPL draft season is going. I'm currently top by 4 points, but I still feel like no offense, JP, I might Arsenal. I've got 4 games to go, and who knows, like that Monster League might get reduced by one of the Steinzer brothers. More on which in a little while. But no, it's good here. It's warm. It's nice. You might notice I've actually usually I've got my settings adjusted so people can't hear it, but the little karaoke bar over the road, RIP in peace. Last night I was up, and it was just playing like this bumping like bass music all night till like 10 in the morning. It was on the Benno schedule. And like then I started hearing banging, and then I looked, and it's just they were literally knocking the building down, but doing a rave while knocking the building down. So there's all these pilled up Russians outside all dancing. Some of them with sledgehammers knocking the place down literally as it was going. And I've literally got up finally today, and I looked outside. It's pretty much gone. Vietnamese don't mess around, mate. It's gone forever. So yeah, might mean some improvements sound-wise my end. So quite happy with that.
It works out well for you, but it's also like the closing of factory records when Tony Wilson, when they were liquidated basically because they were just selling drugs and only water and no one was drinking. So they just gave away all the computers and everything there, and they just went, yeah, you just take it, so no one else could do. But I don't know who the Vietnamese Tony Wilson is, who presenting there as well, and if there's a Vietnamese, it's a new order in that case as well.
I was going to say as well, I mean, that's some local geography people don't need to know. It's the Corner Music Bar. Davey is the one Mo knows. I should know that. Was on Poison Rara on Sunday. So actually, yeah, have I really had to break from current affairs or not? I don't know. That was like waking up from like a 7-day sleep after obviously all of our WrestleMania coverage and trying to get like back on the horse of talking current type stuff. But yeah, me and him went to that bar. He's the one man in the world. If something happens in my apartment here in Vietnam, like Steph's got the address. I think I sent the address to my mum as well because she bullies me to do such things. You know, probably a good thing from a health and safety point of view. But he could actually come and point it because he knows, like literally from that bar, you can look up and there's my little apartment there as well. But there we go. It's all very good outside of that. The only emergency I have in here is, unfortunately, again, very blessed life, JP, as I often mention. Been a little bit sick this week, so I've been a little bit, again, call it WrestleMania leggy. I've been knocking around the flat a little bit. But I've been cleaning. And like, again, very privileged. I've got a cleaner who comes twice a month. It's part of the rent that I pay, so it's a nice little thing to have. When I pushed myself to go out to the shop while she was doing the cleaning, came back. And you know the way, like, in any apartment, JP, or any flat at home, you have that little drawer where you just keep the things that you don't really need. And in that drawer, it'll be things like plastic bags, it'll be spare cutlery, it'll just be, little napkins, little things like that. I had the little basket. Simon, if he's in the chat, knows it well. I've mentioned it a few times, but it's been, every time you do an order here on Grab, they give you a plastic bag for your plastic bag. So I've got so much stuff like built up, or like sauce packets, that's another one. So I've got a lot of those in there as well. Came back, she just chucked it all. And not even just like wholesale, just throwing everything away. She'd gone through it. She'd left a few things. I had a couple of sauces left. I had a couple of sealed packets of chopsticks left. But the vast majority, me forks, me knives, and more importantly, JP, the bit I really can't get my head around, because again, something could be lost in translation. Maybe she thought I was using it as a bin. All of my plastic bags, every single one of them, she's taken them away and put them in the bin. Like, I feel like that's just a step too far. To be honest, maybe it's hurt me so much because it reminds me of being a kid, when your mum would clean your room or something like that. Go, you don't need that Power Slam magazine. Like, that's got like 3 years ago's date on it. We'll just throw that away. Just felt a bit like that. It's just like, why would you do such a thing? Maybe it's just not something they do here. Maybe they don't collect odds and ends of knives and forks, plastic bags, paper plates, that type of thing. Extra sauces. I feel like that should be universal, no?
No wonder there's an oil crisis if they're just chucking away plastic bags willy-nilly with not a thought about recycling it as well. Like,
don't even think about that anymore. It's not a thing here at all. Fucking hell.
when it came to the sources, are some sources gone and some remain?
A couple, yeah, exactly. So it's not like she's literally gone through like handheld and gone, he doesn't need that one. He doesn't need that many chili sauces. Little does she know, as Matthew points out. I need a lot of fucking chili sauces. Unbelievable.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, she doesn't know about your love of Frank's red hot sauce. So, like, I mean, anything that's going to be adding a bit of spice and flavour. It's also, that's a very, like, I don't know, a big executive decision to make on someone's behalf. They'll like that. They're like barbecue sauce. Will they? I'm not mad on it, and I normally love all that sort of shit. Like, you can't go making assumptions on what people.
They don't need plastic bags. Who knows what I might need a plastic bag for? You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you'll use it as bin liner when you've got a bin liner around. There's always a use for a plastic bag, isn't there? But again,
fucking right.
But again, I know I'm very privileged to have such a thing. So maybe they've gone to a good home. Maybe they've been moved on to somebody else. Maybe it was that kind of a raid rather than trying to clean up or not. But no, I was going to say outside of that, obviously I mentioned it there, Davey. We got to get into the plugs. We are actually free here on the main feed for this part of the show. If you want the extended or the normal edition of the weekend show, past the news, i.e. the TV stuff, Dynamite, and also our previews, a couple of banging looking New Japan cards to look at later. And do sign up at patreon.com/grapple or youtube.com/@grapple to get the full version. But yeah, we've got a million things going on, JP. Like I mentioned at the top, Matty Mania Extra is up. He's in San Francisco, or he was in San Francisco. That was the first one he put up. Seattle and Portland, I believe, is going to be the next edition of Matty Mania Extra, where he's going through his scrans and all of his other things. Just saw on his Instagram, going a few of the Kurt Cobain sites as well, which is obviously always going to be the case when someone like our Matthew is out in the United States. And on top of that, we've got a cracking King of the Mountain shop from our Carl.
We do indeed. Am I allowed to announce what it is?
It's out. He's put it on the Discord. It's fine. We know. Speaking of the Steiner brothers or Steiner's brothers.
The Steinzer brothers. I had a good record against them last couple of weeks, but I'll leave that aside. If there is, exactly. I'm not sure one of them exists. He's more like the Black Scorpion than anything else. But it's the Steiners in ECW, because if there's one thing Carl loves, it's a bit of ECW lore. So, yeah,
bit of fan
brilliant choice. Yeah. Oh, yes. God, I remember.
Bit of Gabe Sapolsky handhold good work, you know. Better than the work he's doing now.
But it's that weird period where there would be some people that would just like turn up at that particular period of time in ECW, like when Ron Simmons would turn up. And this is like obviously when Don Morocco and Jimmy Snuka are having like sort of various little stints, and before someone like Steve Austin stayed and made a part of it. So I'm really fascinated by this, just in terms of old Rick and Scott and what they're up to on there. So yeah, that's going to be happening. I'm just going to say this weekend, and I'll leave it open as
JP blew my mind by telling me Monday's a bank holiday. I didn't know they still existed.
Yeah, May Day.
I think it's like King's Day or something like that here today. So I don't know. I guess we technically have them as well. But there you go. Good to know. So yeah, it will be over the weekend, obviously, and yeah, looking forward to chatting with Carl as well. And it did feel, to me, obviously catnip for yourself and Gareth, bit of Steiner's, bit of ECW. I don't believe I've seen any of this. I've seen maybe the clip that I think went in our group chat of maybe Scott and Rick Steiner maybe saying some things they probably shouldn't be saying in front of a Taz who was laughing his head off. I feel like I've seen that clip at some point. The matches, though, I think there's 4 of them that officially made tape, and as Platter's saying there in the chat, he's getting the homework done as we speak. I know he's looking for the extra sickos to watch, and one of which he can't even find. I think there's 8 matches total he ever did in ECW, and one of them doesn't look like it's even made the Gabe Sapolsky fan cam as well. So it should be relatively easy homework as well. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it and talk the other story, I guess, of Rick and Scott in ECW. But as you say, that'll be coming up over the weekend, and then after that, be another fresh month with May as well. But obviously, you can also get our things like our 5-1 if you are listening on the free feed. Evergreen, we did a 5-1 WrestleManias ever. Obviously, we haven't included this year's Mania yet, so maybe we need to rethink that ranking, JP. But yeah, people can check that out as well as all of our archives, and like I mentioned earlier, the full version of the weekend show. But yeah, half the reason I've thrown this on the free feed, at least for this first hour or so, JP, is we do need to catch up with everything that's going on in the world of wrestling. And there's a fucking shitload of news, unbelievably, that happened over the last 10 days or so, or whatever it's been while we've been gone. But the big one, obviously, we need to talk about. He's taking front and center pride of place on the weekend show banner behind me, and that is the big release Tommy Belland, and also all of us mates, as WWE did have a typical and now traditional, I guess, JP, post-WrestleMania call. It was one of those nights again on Twitter. You know, you got certain people on there trying to pretend it's the worst day on earth. You know, you got thoughts and prayers with all of the strangers I don't know who've been relieved of their duties from WWE. But I will say, actually, in fairness, there was a couple here where I was just like, oh, okay, that makes no sense considering the usage on TV and just generally what you would imagine as far as their WWE runs would go. But I won't go through the full list, JP, being a little bit removed here. But there was a long old list of people, courtesy our friends over there, at Post Wrestling. Obviously, it was Fightful and PW Insider doing most of the reporting. But yeah, some of the more shocking ones, JP, obviously, Alba Fire. We can talk about her. Kaylee Ray being released. Alistair Black, of course, as we mentioned. The Motor City Machine Guns. The entire Wyatt Six, which was made for some for the sicko. We're the sick ones, JP. We were in group chats as we were counting down. It was Andy Ogden saying, "It's Wyatt 6, now it's Wyatt 5, now it's Wyatt 4, now it's not Wyatt 3, now it's Wyatt's all gone, and the Wyatts are gone." We can talk that. Carrie Sane was obviously the other shocking one, I think, for a lot of people, considering she was front and center of a current Monday Night Raw story. Santos Escobar in there too, and of course, obviously, along with Alistair Black, Zelina Vega, Zoe Stark, another one that caught a few people out, as well as some NXT names. But yeah, I guess Apollo Crews, the other one, JP, shocked by any of those names, and yeah, any particular thoughts on where they'll land? I guess I'll get us started with definitely not AEW for Alistair Black based on some people's tweets, but might be the case for the Motor City Machine Guns, and who knows, maybe a couple of others on the list.
Yeah, there's a couple that he'll definitely go for. I mean, the thing about Alistair Black as what's kind of... It's such an odd one because it isn't that long ago that he was having sort of like some TV matches and everything else. This isn't like Apollo Crews, who isn't being completely unused at all. But I have to say, just the levels of schadenfreude that went through me when he got released, because you just thought, well, this kind of serves you right for acting like a massive dickhead. And I have to say that Zelina Vega has also behaved like an absolute dickhead as well, because clearly the fault when you're fired is the person who's reporting on the story, not the person who's actually fired you in any way.
It's the modern Vince McMahon always liked me in it. That fucking Johnny Ace sits that in it. But now it's that Sean Ross Sapp. God damn him.
But what? Because he's been told by someone in the office. He's not making the decisions. Like, that's not what's happening. Like, he's absolutely ridiculous there. In terms of Alistair Black, do you know what? I mean, I was thinking about this. Would it surprise me if he got picked up by AEW? I thought myself, it wouldn't be that surprising. But if you're Tony Khan, you are playing ultra hardball here, and you're going, the first moment you decide that doesn't work for you, brother, out the fucking door you do go and take your kickboxing shit with you at the same time. But even in AEW, just like, if anything, my memory is how he kind of, you look at where Brody King is this week. That doesn't happen if Alistair Black is still around the place. Like, do you know what I mean? Or Malachi Black. That doesn't happen. And I don't think he'll... Yeah, exactly. And he doesn't do an Andrade where he comes back in and he feels somewhat like renewed and reinvigorated and there's like a bit more like kind of pizzazz about him. And you think, actually, I'm wanting to see what this guy does. I don't see that happening. What I can end up seeing him doing is wanting to charge an absolute small fortune for attending any signing convention or indie show, and then eventually just gets hired back, because I think that's just the pattern of what will happen for him, and he'll just dick around until then. Japan would have been an option, and this is the thing, is realistically, it's like, where are the options of where some of these people are going to go to? I mean, it kind of gets categorized by like AEW, TNA, New Japan specifically, maybe Noah, and then it's Indies / MLW, isn't it? With maybe some Maple Leaf
MLP.
chucked. Yeah, / MLP. And that's really where it's just because the Indies, as we've seen from WrestleMania weekend, is on its fucking arse. So, and you're not going to get the kind of money that they want. Where do I see Alistair Black going? I don't see him going anywhere. I think he's just Twitch. That's what it is.
You'll be competing with us, mate, on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's what
exactly. That's what he'll be doing. and then he'll wait for him to go back into WWE because he just seems like he's got that mentality of this is the only game in town. Everywhere else, he'll take the piss, and every one of those promoters should just be thinking, this guy is not going to do business. Fuck him off.
Yeah, and I wonder with WWE, like, what happened there, because like I said, the story was going into Mania that he was going to be in the Pat McAfee role. Like, that was part of, like, the consideration, who was going to be on the phone to Randy Orton. It was evil Aleister Black, who was the mastermind behind it. So, like, the 180 for him to be released already just makes me think something's happened there. Or, like, they've just got sick of his bullshit. Like, he's going on about what colour socks he's wearing or something like that. And even Paul Levesque has gone, you know what? If I've got to get rid of someone else, why not him? Then I don't have to face him in work every week. Like, because again, don't let it be buried, as you said earlier. It is Triple H who's making these calls at the end of the day. Yeah. He is the one who's deciding whether he loves you there or not. And it turns out he doesn't love some of these people quite as much as he loves his other kids. But I don't know. I feel like we can probably say it as far as everybody on this list. Like, we can shout, AEW shouldn't get this person, AEW shouldn't get that person, AEW should take a stand and not bring any of these people in, like they probably should have in the past. But it's still Tony Khan, isn't it? He's going to want to give a lot of these people a shot. He's going to want to at least feel them out on a collision on an ROH or something like that. But even that will be a step too far for Aleister Black. Like, as the chat saying there, he's never really kicked up any trees. Like, he's the career mid-card. He'd be fine if he wasn't such a cunt. And at the end of the day, he is such a cunt. And, like, you'd even see him, like an MJF, come out and outright say pretty much the locker room don't want you, or resharing things with people saying such words. Like, I feel like that bridge has burned so much that I think there's no smoke without fire with this one. And I think he's done. I really do. I could see him landing in a TNA, then giving him creative license, and him and the Wyatt Six go to the Undead Realm, and then Abyss turns up and something like that. And maybe that's how he works his way back into WWE, but I'm really hoping the die is cast on him at this point, because I said it to Davey, I've been sick of seeing this cunt since he was working the European indies or turning up at the odd Brit Res show in the early 2010s. Like, always been overrated, always been a cunt, and yeah, it did give me a little bit of a chuckle, that one. Do any of the other names stand out to you, like, as far as pickups go? Like I say, most City Machine Guns, as I've got on the screen there, seem the most likely to actually end up in AEW.
Yeah.
Kaylee Ray feels likely she'll get a little bit of a shot. Same with Nikki Cross. I think Nikki Storm. I think that's most likely going to happen at some point. But is there anybody else?
Well, there's a couple that are intriguing, because the Kairi Sane one, you would say that would be a really good pickup. And you've got a relationship with Stardom if she wants to go to Stardom. But it depends if she wants to go to Marigold. But also, the thing that we can't, with her, she seems like she's the only one who's got this grassroots campaign of fans wanting to have her back, as we heard from Chance on Raw and stuff. And so if they reverse that, because that's the one that makes no sense, if they reversed it in time for SummerSlam and she made a big appearance, would you be surprised? No, not really. If you end up like, if that was the case and she came back out, I wouldn't be surprised at all, because that one was the most nonsensical. She was part of a long-running storyline, and I don't know, like, how much is she being paid in comparison to some other people? I don't imagine she's sort of like demanding the earth, really. But she'd be a good pickup for AEW for like Forbidden Door. But at the same time, it doesn't really, that one just made no sense to me at all. Motor City Machine Guns, like you say, going to AEW would be the other ones. And there, Santos Escobar is an interesting one, if only because, yeah, but it ties in with the CMLL and the dual deals and things like that, that he would be a good pickup for wanting to turn up at a big CMLL show, particularly because I think that there's a lot of talk about him doing a Grand Slam in Arena Mexico. So if that's going to be the case at some point, it would have a lot of meaning for him to go out to there. The left field one that I would say, and I thought you and Davey did a brilliant job going through these, and thank God, because Davey knows his NXT, which is a massive help when I see some of the names on there and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. If they're in the room, I still think he made right now. Yeah, like Serena Linton. Okay. I mean, God, when I've heard some of the names, when I watched NXT, and I went, it's Tate Wilder. And I'm like, all I could think of was what that film that Ryan Reynolds was in about a party liaison. It's like
Van Wilder.
Somebody
bought me that for Christmas one year. I don't know what he thought of me, but anyway.
Is it any good?
Yeah, no. It's a gross out comedy that came out about 8 years too late, pretty much, yeah.
Sounds about right in there. The left field one I think they may end up trying is Tyra May Steele. And that's not because of she's got she's a brilliant worker at this point. She's an Olympic gold medalist. And there's an element of that in itself creates a little bit of sort of like notoriety. And whether or not that's worth her coming in, would she be willing to do some shots there and stuff like that? Then that wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. And it's even like, say, a Zoe Stark might be someone I think you could see them giving a punt to, because it always feels like they're going to want to beef up the women's division as well at various points, particularly now you've got the tag belts and you've got the other couple of, you've already got 2 other women's singles titles in there. Outside of some of these people, the NXT people, I expect to disappear forever. And if Apollo Crews, if we're not seeing Uhaa Nation in Preston at some point, or in Benidorm,
I want to see him.
Well, that's where we all want to see him. Yeah, Benidorm, Magaluf, Lanzarote. Either way, Sonny climbs there, dancing around, foam parties. That's where I want to see him. That's what I want to see him doing.
And if anybody's like a first-time listener, they're so heartless, these people. Like, I mean, when we were in a pandemic, JP and WWE were releasing these people, and there still is something of a moral quandary here, considering we're about to get some stories about the untold profits that they've had recently and the payouts for big names that they're doing right now as far as executives and such. That is a consideration, but when it was in a pandemic, that was very different. It was unbelievable. They were doing it in a pandemic and releasing people into nothing. It just got Apollo Crews is probably the test case, is he not? Like, I saw him on Twitter today. He said something like, now we get going. Now my story starts. It's like, dude, you've been in WWE for 10 years of your prime here. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to steal a living too, be sat at catering and just having a great time. And then every now and then, like Dave, you were saying, they come up with an idea for you. They send you back to NXT. They bring you back, get a bit of background work. But he wasn't really doing much for these 10 years, was he? And he was making a fair packet out of it. So he should have been saving his money this entire time. But the trade-off was, he's probably lost a lot of his prime when it comes to it as well. But there's a few of those names in here as well. And obviously, like any sports, like anything, we don't cry tears when football players get caught. I don't necessarily feel any stronger than that about the wrestlers there. But outside of the ones you mentioned, just quickly, JP, like I can't. Yeah, there isn't really anybody else who stands like that. Again, the Wyatt Six, they had a very Bray Wyatt run, didn't they? Great entrance, great, the music, the setup for the first one, and then no ideas since that, I guess they could have kept Bo Dallas around if they wanted to do right by that family. That maybe is going to sting, but the rest of them, Joe Gacy probably should just be happy he got a WWE run that lasted this long, and he's going to be back to the death matches or CZW or GCW or wherever he's going to end up. And it is a small-ish Jakari Sainz that surprised me / make me think, okay, that's a bit odd considering, again, being right in the middle of a story. That one, you kind of alluded to there, but just to say it outright, like there has been some back and forth on whether she wanted to go back to Japan or WWE, or it was the WWE side, or whether it was her, saying that she didn't want to work in America anymore. I think there might be more to that story, or they might just be cunts. Either option is available, but that one seems a little bit more murky, especially, like you say, considering the timing of it and the fact that they are literally in the middle of a story with it. They could have at least wrapped that up first.
Exactly. Not like they didn't, what was it? The point Davey said they got a 90-day no complete clause. You can wrap up some stories in that time, even though they're going. Like there's things they could have done for that as well, and there's a lot of. I have to say that the Chris Island name has now completely thrown me in this because he's just like, who is Chris Island? Like, and if anything, he should be the title. It's like Chris. I assume that's just a piss take. I'm assuming they've done what I've done. Yeah, it feels like it's one of mine. It really would have been. I would have probably called him Mick or Jim Island or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say he doesn't sound like a Republican.
Normally, that's the giveaway for me.
Sounds like he's on the bad side.
There's a lot of potential. What would have been in the past TNA rehab projects, and that would be like your Dante Chens. Can they go to TNA? Can they work regularly on TV and then just work themselves back into the WWE ecosystem? Particularly the way that they're going to churn talent once Mike Santana and a few of others have probably gone in the next few, and Leon Slater have gone in the next few months as well. It's how many of them are just going to leave altogether? That would be the other thing as well. There's just going to be a good few of them who are just like, yeah, no, I'm off. Like, that's it. I'm done with it. Is it Luca Crucifino has said that? He's just like, he's kind of done with wrestling at this point. And, you know, had a decent enough run, didn't he? Basically playing the Robert Duvall role from Consigliere, which is incredible. I'd talk about that for NXT. That would be the case. I did watch NXT, so we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But this is what the wrestling ecosystem needs. It needs people to move on. It needs people to move around.
Well, speaking of which, obviously, they needs to make room to bring some people up to the main roster, JP, as well as make some other signings as well, as you alluded to there with NXT.
They did indeed. So the big question is, who is coming to Raw and who is joining SmackDown? Apologies for burping there. On Raw, I know I'm not proud of myself, but that's just the way things roll. And for free listeners, can that happen? Yeah, that can happen quite a lot on this show. 3 NXT stars have made the jump. Ethan Page, who I think you would kind of nailed in terms of comments that he feels like he could be around for a very long time. Sol Rucker and Joe Hendry. So they've all gone to Raw. Joe Hendry doing his songs already and getting over worryingly at the same time. Whereas on SmackDown, there's 4. We've got Ricky Star Saints, I've got to say it properly, Blake Monroe, and Fatal Influence, who have already debuted there as well.
They got over in first. Watched all the SmackDown for that show on Sunday. I'm a professional, if nothing else. Matty won't believe me, but I did. Luckily, it's going back to 2 hours soon, so it won't be too painful, but it'll still be very painful.
Oh, yeah. 2 hours is long enough for any WWE show. I've learned that lesson the hard way.
Oh, definitely. But it makes sense, obviously, in doing that. Like, talking like post the chat I had on Sunday, we thought it was coming, but obviously they also, made the move to add to the NXT roster as well with obviously our friend Evil, depending on what he's going to be called, and Will Cruz. I think Will Cruz's name has already been changed. Let us know in the chat. Couldn't find an official news story saying that, but I did see an Instagram story that maybe alluded to that. Lizzie Rain, also among the surprises on NXT. So there's been movement in both directions, and I think some of that is obviously good. How long? Really, I mean, I'm sure Ethan Page, Ricky Starks, were on decent wages enough for NXT, considering that they've made the jump from WWE, from AEW. Sorry, I think that's going to be part of the the consideration there as far as what you're paying people to work NXT rather than be on the proper main roster. Maybe Joe Hendry's on some of that money as well, but interested to kind of see the movements, and I think the biggest part of it's going to be what are the names coming out of this, and will Evil be good? Will he get another name like that?
Naughty,
the many trademark names. Naughty could work, but again, as far as the people are picking, I'm not 100% sure, but as far as the way this is supposed to work, I think this is the way this is supposed to work. Better that than having 700,000 people on NXT or whatever. Mason Rook, that's the name, that's what.
Mason Rook. What a fucking.
That's what Will Cruz got. Or is that a fan in the ring? That's his alternate name. Maybe that's his nickname according to the NXT commentary this week. It wasn't the best first impression, was it? Cut his mullet, went up to the top rope, had a bit of a tight hoodie on, which, as a man who's worn clothes too tight for him before, bit of a builder's bum showing, and then literally the commentary on. Is that a fan? Oh well, at least he got a surprise treatment. Doesn't happen very often. 1, somebody gets signed, and 2, appears before it's even been reported as a story. It was a genuine shock, unlike Evil.
It was a weird segment. That one, it really was. Just having
47 things going on at once,
Oh, God, it's just like debuting people on a show and then just debuting 17 people on a show. It was insane for it on there. I mean, the Evil one on there, we're getting a name change. I'm not holding any hope for it. But then there's a part of me goes, I don't watch NXT on the reg. I'm quite happy about Evil working his way over there.
Best place he can be.
Oh, God. The pain that lad has put us through over a long period, to the point where I had to raise this with the president of New Japan himself, who was just like, Evil's just playing a character. It's like, mate, kill Jester, come on, which is a reference he never got, but I still like to think I made my point to him. It's just like, he's shit, let's move on. But in terms of Will Cruz, he does have, he should have the mullet back. That would be the thing, and just sorting out his get-up, but his moveset's really good. and he can do some pretty spectacular stuff for a guy his size. But it's the idea of it being, was it a Rich Fan, the hat and a hat and a hat? The idea you've got an Evil debut to then lead into Tavian Heights attacking Tony D'Angelo, to then Will Cruz coming out, and you just go, right, okay, we've forgotten about the Evil debut already. We're just like moving well past it. Is Hiromu going there as well at the same time? Is that going to be something that we see in the next few weeks? Yeah, possibly that'll be the case there. I actually thought Lizzie Rain will get over. That will get over. It's basic. It's not complicated. She likes heavy metal. She's got the right haircut for it. The name is an improvement from Rain Leverkusen, which always felt weird. And it always felt like if I actually spoke to her, I'd say to her, are you a Bayer Leverkusen fan? If so, that's quite left field. Why would you use it as part of a wrestling name? I really can't quite understand it. But, you know, there you go. But Lizzie Rain, it just feels like something that will work for this audience because they cheer fucking anything in that place, don't they? So yeah. I think those ones will work.
It's one of those, you mentioned it earlier, and we've been chatting about it privately this week. Like, the US Indies are dead, pretty much, and we learned that WrestleMania week, so you got to go a little bit further afield to get your people, and I'm guessing it wasn't Graps and Clap that they were listening to in WWE that put them onto Will Cruz. I'm guessing it's Noah and seeing them out there. I'm guessing it's a bit of an A-Train's influence on top of Jim Smallman earning his money for whatever he fucking does, going around on trains around the UK trying to steal talent. But yeah, I mean, he is somebody who it feels, you still feel it. Despite him being a name that I think I've heard the Ogdens that talk about since about 2018, still feels like someone who could have done a bit more development outside the WWE or more interesting stuff. But we're past the point, JP, where again, old shouts that we'd have on here 10 years ago would be like, oh, can't believe it. I can't believe they've done that. It's like, no, I think you've almost got to, they're obviously doing WWE tryouts, aren't they, this week in the UK, like, get your money, mate. What else are you really going to do? You understand it from that personal point of view, even if maybe he's someone who had like that door open with Japan and could have maybe developed a little bit further and done something a bit more, I don't know, suited to what seemed to be his strengths compared to what he'll be doing in NXT. But yeah, can't fault him from a personal point of view there as well. But yeah, that's such goes the world. And yeah, if anything, mostly impressed that they managed to keep it a surprise. Maybe Ninja Back will be next, JP, or who's one of the other made-up names you come up with whenever we do Noah. What's the one who's got a name like Saved by the Bell? Zack Slater or whatever his name is. Could be one of them.
Oh God.
Zach Morris, that's it, isn't it? Jack Morris.
Yeah, Jack Morris. Jack Morris feels like he's perfectly, like he's made for NXT because he works a perfectly fine wrestling style while having a good look about him and being kind of nondescript and bland. That feels like it's NXT. And it's like what Andy says here in the chat, you would have, because they've got the links with Noah, they don't have to rush them out. Do you need to rush him into NXT? It's like you could have given him a few months there, let him kind of like develop himself and then bring him in as like a kind of like a killer. It's very weird how they rushed so much, like it was complete season cast reboot, like out of nowhere watching that show, to people where there was that English guy called, was it Tristan Angels? The one who's going, and I was just awful, like straight away. But I was bemused at a John Burko influenced character appearing on NXT TV. Just seems weird at the best time. And then I realised, I assume he's come from the land of Norwich because I'd never heard of this bloke before. And it's just like, yeah, that's normally what ends up happening if there's somebody in the UK who from the UK turns on NXT and we don't have a clue who they are. It's like, have you gone through? You've gone through Norwich, haven't you? And the Knights, really, that has to be the only one on there.
Yeah, maybe that explains the releases as well. They need to make some money to pay for Paige's big fat wage as well. But it's not just there that's making the big money this week. JP is amongst all of the releases. There was one big time re-signing this week, JP, is Paul Levesque, Triple H, a manager you would have thought was about to take his team down. Apparently, we're going to get into some WrestleMania numbers in a little while. Maybe the numbers were enough to stave off relegation for one more year and to keep Paul Levesque in his position as Triple H has apparently signed a new contract as head of creative with WWE. We don't know how long the contract is, but this came out in the WWE town hall. We're running a little bit, so I'll shovel a few of these stories in together. Obviously, there've been a little bit of a pushback and back and forth over who actually had full control of creative in WWE, and TKO, representatives pushing back that they had a lot of influence on it. Sounds like AI also has a lot of influence on it, on WWE creative at the minute. But yeah, gave some doubt as to whether anything might happen with Triple H. But comes amongst a time period, JP, where, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of compensation and being paid to these big executives, so they're still making the money, including Dwayne Johnson, who apparently hasn't turned up to a meeting in about a year, still made $900,000 in royalties in this last quarter. And on top of that, yeah, at that TKO town hall, Nick Khan was quite vocal on a lot of things, talked Saudi Arabia and the safety of the roster going over there, obviously with WWE's Night of Champions being confirmed for Saudi somehow in June. I mean, if I can't get a flight through that area right now, I guess, yeah, if you've got the money you do, maybe in fact you can. But yeah, there were a few interesting news and notes coming out of that. Obviously, I talked about maybe it being half a mistake. Nick Khan was saying about doing back-to-back WrestleManias in Las Vegas as well. But yeah, one of the other quotables in there from him wasn't very much backing the manager in that way that a poorly performing team might have their chairman wheeled out to say he's got our full backing as old Triple H. But I guess they've doubled down as well, JP, with the big fat new contract.
Yeah, and it's a weird one. I don't know if they're fearful of him being signed up by someone else, and that's why they've given him the contract. Because
that'd be something. Who the beat, Maple Leaf Pro, maybe.
Exactly. Well, I think this is what it says as much as anything else is the actual quality of the product is meaningless to them. They couldn't give a shit. What they're looking at is the figures like Ari Emanuel getting a total compensation package of $67.3 million, and Mark Shapiro getting one of $42.6 million, and Nick Khan getting one, in $24.2 million, which would have been far surpassing anything he would have gotten in when it was under Vince McMahon, the pre-TKO in there. It's those astonishing amounts of money, and it's truly extraordinary amounts of money at a time when they do anything regarding cost cutting of the overall product, stiffing fighters on pay, like they're wanting to bring in various things in order to kind of change the way payment works in the boxing industry as well, and the Muhammad Ali Act and things like that. And I just think they just go, he's a steady hand, without ever actually looking at, is he any good at this? Is any of this stuff any good? And we realise that he's not booking it. It's Google Gemini. I mean, I know when we get to SmackDown later on, I asked it, I said, how would you book SmackDown this week? I was just intrigued to see how close it'll be to the actual real thing.
Oh, that's what they put in. Who should run the Orton's Mystery Caller be? Should it be at Malachi Black? No, actually, Pat McAfee, said ChatGPT. Yeah, complimented them on the way, did the usual soft buttering that ChatGPT does. Oh yeah, like my conspiracy theory this entire time has been that Vince McMahon is in some way influencing these executives and helping them make their billions, and maybe just sounding off on Signal or something like that, a few ideas that he possibly had for some of the creative, including like Pat McAfee. But now this came out, it's like, no, that makes way more sense. ChatGPT would say that. It would like scan Reddit or something like that and see one person's idea to make Pat McAfee the general manager of WWE or the world champion and go, that's a really good idea, and do it. Which is great. Which, by the way, we should give them some credit. I haven't included it as a news story, but I won't often say this, but I suppose good on Pat McAfee and Jelly Roll for recognizing that this is kind of shit and the people hate us for it and we're not wrestlers, so maybe we shouldn't be involved in this stuff, and being the ones to step away. Because without it, who knows what the ChatGPT WWE equivalent would have came up for them next. Maybe that would have been next year's WrestleMania main event, according to
do you want to know?
It says on
here. No,
go on.
It's not good. It basically says Cody Rhodes issues a challenge to Randy Orton about a bull rope match, ensuring he can't run or hide behind Pat McAfee, seemingly forgetting about the fact that he attacked McAfee at WrestleMania. And then McAfee interrupts on the big screen, mocking Cody's heroics, and Orton blindsides him from the crowd. And the message is clear. The legend killer doesn't wait for contracts. And then it sets up Ricky Sates versus Grayson Waller. And I went, that'll probably be a thing that happens this
there you go. You've heard it here first, if it is. I mean, it's
Rick Williams versus Santos Escobar, and he's like, he's just been released, lads. Like, what is going on? You're meant to be a fucking supercomputer, and you don't know jack.
But he gets re-signed. You'll see it coming. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, it does feel like that could very truly be the case. And like Triple H has just been, it's a bit like a, a futuristic sci-fi. He's been replaced by a computer, and there's like a little monitor with Triple H's head on or something like that in creative. Because I've been saying it for a while, it hasn't felt like he's been there. No matter what you thought of WWE when it was at its competent best or whatever, they had baby faces that were over, buildings were full, and the fan base was particularly happy. And that is, something that's to be proud of. And a good job was at least being done on that level, absolutely, at that point. And that is not the case right now, and it does feel like he's just, if anything, maybe there's more to it in the fact of like some kind of, I don't know, drama behind the scenes where he was, trying to fight his corner and they were kind of, trying to push him out maybe, or maybe, they found out he's got a little bit more power than they thought. They can tell him to put McAfee, but when it comes to the actual segment and what goes on TV and what goes on the paper, it's Paul Levesque who's going to be able to pull those strings and change what's going on. It feels a little bit like, like when a contract negotiation is going on in the media, maybe some of the quotables we've heard from both sides in the run-up to WrestleMania and in this last week maybe fed into that as well. And then at the end of it, they've gone, literally, we've got no other ideas. Who else is going to do the job? Road Dogg? Ha! Fuck that, we already sacked him. I guess you can have it for a few more years, Paul. Like, that's what it feels like, really. He's just, like you say, the safe, not even the safe pair of hands, but the pair of hands we know, or, potentially, with this new contract, the pair of hands that we can blame for all this if it goes to shit, or, if things keep trending the way they seem to be trending in general with WWE.
He's Ryan Mason. He's basically, if things go really bad at Spurs,
not Mason Ryan,
not Mason Ryan, not to be confused with him. Although Ryan Mason will be an NXT wrestler because they'll have forgotten about Mason Ryan by that point. But it's steady pair of hands, and it's also malleable pair of hands, a pair of hands who also knows where the bodies are buried. So there's an element of just keep him around, whatever, and as long as things aren't completely shitting the bed. But I think it's also done with the tacit acknowledgement that it's on his shoulders. If things go wrong, that's on his shoulders. And if it isn't, it's a good team effort. And perhaps it's the brilliant creative of Mark Shapiro and Ari Emanuel behind the scenes. But I very much doubt they're working, writing scripts for Raw and rewriting it on the Monday afternoon, are they? It'd be funny if they did.
But anyway, like I say, they can still claim things are doing well business-wise, JP, as we do have some WWE business-related news coming out of WrestleMania. They are still holding their head high, even if they're making some admittances that all is not rosy in the garden.
Yes, they did. They did claim that WrestleMania 42 was one of the highest grossing events in company history. Now, we're kind of used to, post-WrestleMania, a whole series of records being broken in there as well.
How much did that come pay to be on commentary? Jesus Christ. Maybe that's part of it. 25% of the
hell. Well, he's a billionaire, isn't he? Old weird Adam Weesenstein.
Not in real money.
No, exactly. Well, he's crypto. So, I mean, you'd think, you would say jail at some point, but he'll be giving a lot of money to Trump in there as well. What was it? They said that the first two matches of night one, that it was the most viewed telecast of the year on ESPN2 on there. And the Obafemi Brock Lesnar and the ladder match, that was the most viewed telecast of the entire weekend on ESPN. On there, they said that they had a record or near record performances across gate, sponsorship and merchandise, and they still went with the bullshit number of 106,072. It's just very much lacking in specifics, isn't it? There's not actual detail on any of those things, and that's always the damning indictment, because if it was, they'd be talking about how much they grossed. What was the actual gross? And then people would have just done a simple side-by-side comparison. How does that compare to last year? Because you've got Allegiant Stadium from last year, but it is well down. And the ESPN one, I don't think ESPN are around for the long haul on this. I think they can see the kind of the writing on the wall of they've overpaid massively for this product and for the rights to these, and it's not going to do them the kind of numbers that ESPN would frankly be expecting. But not particularly. I mean, not strong.
Go into that as a side, like we're talking all the business of being like you mentioned there. Obviously, the Saturday and Sunday first hours being on ESPN and ESPN2, but the other way around, night one was on ESPN2, night two was on ESPN1. Just hit my OCD that, but yeah. Did 1.616 million viewers for the ESPN2 airing on the Saturday and 1.822 million viewers for the ESPN1 viewing on the Sunday. On top of that, worth mentioning as well, they've been not really touting it as much as they usually would, but I had to dig a few pages into the Observer website to get this. But it is true; it's not just Roman Reigns adjacent Instagram accounts that have been celebrating this. Raw after Mania did. And I don't know if this is down with Think Praise JP, the 4th best viewership ever in the Netflix series. And you go, oh, well, at least that's a while. No, not really. Has it been 18 months since they went on Netflix? Like, I don't actually think that's that good. The 4th in total, it was 3 million worldwide. Again, 3.3 million worldwide. Very different from the domestic numbers. Don't ask me why I'm mentioning that, JP. But yeah, 300,000 viewers shy of the previous year's Raw after WrestleMania, which did 3.6 million viewers. So maybe that explains why you're not seeing a lot of it in the press. Pretty much there's in the same ballpark as the Hogan documentary series did. The first episode did about 3 million or so. Again, worldwide. And unlike regular TV, where we can often say, JP, well, year on year, things are going down, so it makes sense. Year on year, things are going up with Netflix. So, maybe you should expect that in kind with the WWE numbers as well. But I don't know. Are you impressed on any of these numbers? Is 3 million a good number for Raw these days? Is the million or so that they did on ESPN good or not? I guess should be worth noting, as we often say with AEW, doesn't include streaming as well. I don't know if they'd be disappointed with that, but it kind of tells you wrestling is what we think it is. That it's the little niche thing that we watch, and there's a couple million of us worldwide, and that's about it. And it's not growing anytime soon. Whether it's WrestleMania or not.
And the only meaningful, substantial growth is only going to happen through one company in WWE. I mean, I listened to this is the thing, that because we don't get ESPN as an entity in the UK, it's kind of all divvied up within sort of various sports channels here. 1 million isn't great. I mean, 1 million is completely dwarfed by anything that the NCAA would do, obviously by anything the NFL would do, really by anything that hockey would do. And kind of when you're getting into kind of like minority sports, and when you consider how much they've paid overall, are they going to get that return on investment? And I'm just not convinced that's the case. Plus, at the same time, you've got the Andreas Hale stuff, which is just you would think to yourself, like, and I know ESPN wouldn't really give a shit about Andreas Hale, but it's the idea of being told what the content should be by this outside entity. I don't think that will sit well with executives there going, yeah, we're not getting a whole lot back from you in the meantime as well. In terms of the 3 million, well, what is it? It started off at 6.7, and then obviously there's a precipitous drop in and around 3 million. Anywhere between 2.6 and 2.9 and 3 million. And this is the big weekend. You should accept some sort of a bump, but a substantial bump for me would be over 4 million.
Yeah, like just looking at it here, 3.3 billion for the episode. The week before did 2.9. They've hit 3 million a couple of times, in the early part of the year again, which they should, considering it's the entire world and not just America. It shows there's, at least that pattern still exists. You actually don't often see it with AEW. Like the Wednesday after a pay-per-view isn't usually stronger than a normal one, but do expect that pattern when it's a big show, like an All-In, or a big show like a WrestleMania, and you're seeing the pattern a little bit, so there is still that peak, but it's not the peak. It's not exactly a gigantic extra percentage of people watching it.
No, it isn't. It's not massive amounts of growth. It's people who would have and
it was a good Raw, by the way, which they stacked. Yeah. Roman was there, Cody was there, just to mention, 2 stars there. Punk was there as well, another star. They did, and they had a lot of happenings on it as well. The Jacob Fatu angle. Yeah. There was Punk and Cody going back and forth. There was a lot of stuff on it.
Well, when we reviewed WrestleMania, I was shocked at how much that Raw was, having seen so many terrible episodes of Raw, to the point it was kind of unwatchable. That was very watchable. And even if you didn't like specifics, the programs themselves felt like kind of interesting direction stuff, longer for SummerSlam and the immediacy of a Jacob Fatu and things like that. And plus, you've got the idea that worldwide, all these people have seen WrestleMania. There's all these events and happenings from it, and the buzz of day 2. And it's kind of carried on a little bit, but by next week, I expect that to be 3 million or below. I don't expect it to be anything kind of like substantial for it. And that's probably going to be the case. And you mentioned there about the Hogan series, which have you seen all of the episodes of the
Like I said, I've had a bit of leggy this week, not too serious, but like, I spent a lot of time in bed, JP, and I thought, you know what, I'll throw on Hogan, I'll throw on the documentary, I'll watch the first few episodes, and I got towards the end of the first episode, and I must have at some point fell asleep because I woke up to Hogan telling a Billy bullshit story about Andre the Giant and went, yeah, I'm done. And just turned it. I woke up in a daze, turned it off, and went back to sleep and haven't turned it back on again, to be honest. Like, that'll do. And to be honest, it starts a little bit like, okay, like the Mr. McMahon series, I loads of stuff in here that I would have done differently and they could go into more detail on. But I'm still going to get some popcorn entertainment out of it. I wasn't getting that much popcorn entertainment out of it, really, but I don't know if you might say differently.
I think the value of this is just in archive footage you haven't seen before. Yeah. Because the lies are
the fact that Linda Hogan was recording so much is actually, in fairness, that is valuable, yeah. The overall narrative shape, but that is interesting.
Yeah, that is, but anything sort of negative, it's skated over. Like, it really is. Like, towards the end, it's just like, come on. Like, there isn't anything in here. The very opening where it's just like watching him as this old man doing the workouts with Nick Hogan and stuff, it's okay, it's kind of interesting, but there's no real depth to this whatsoever. It's just the fact he's died and they filmed it. I mean, God knows what it would have been like if he was alive, like in terms of the sheer volume of lies about how everything is actually great. But it's easy kind of catnip for them to be able to, just because
even if he is telling the truth, though, you don't believe him, do you? When he's talking about like going training and how he thought it was real, brother, until he was stood at ringside and he saw somebody whisper to someone and went, "This is fake." Like, all of it, like, it's like, even if there was a nugget of truth in that, you don't believe it because it's Terry telling the story.
He didn't look at like an Irish whip and go, "Why is that man turning around to go into the how? Why is none of this work? Why do he appear to be going along with it?"
It surprised me, though. I will say, like, one of the talking heads was it Brian B. Blair? He was talking about, like, literally, it does sound like it's true that Hogan really was in bands. Like, I just thought that was bollocks. I could have played bass for Metallica. That was this great level. Like, Brian Blair going, we were watching the band and he was literally stood out on stage. I was like, okay, it's not Hogan saying it. Maybe I buy it a little bit that he was slightly talented as a musician. That was about it, really. That's the only old lie that maybe I believed had a bit more truth to it than I used to.
That's it. And in the first episode, stuff about his brother, which I knew nothing about. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to watch there is a better documentary out there at the week, which I won't go into now because otherwise I'll be here forever. Another Von Erich's documentary that was on the biography on A&E, and I think it's only part one of it. But that was interesting. There was stuff in there that I didn't know, and trust me, I have watched about 4 documentaries on that family. Like, I've watched so much on there, it's just ridiculous. But that was kind of. That one was kind of like, it was a lot more interesting and there was a lot more sort of like obvious depth and darkness, which you could tell a realistic story around Hulk Hogan. It's just, if anything, you're waiting for like some sort of adaptation that isn't like co-produced by WWE and something that actually gets to the meat and bones of this man who is just a pathological liar because he just started to believe he did what Vince did and lived in his own fantasy world. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, archive footage is interesting, not much else.
Definitely. I guess moving on from there quickly, obviously, other quick WWE news. Again, speaking of NXT, they have they signed a new deal. I don't know if that's the positive spin that you can put on it, but obviously there wasn't a home for their big premium live events, aka pay-per-views to normal people. They are now going to be on the CW going forward, so we'll find out if there was much of a monetary deal going on there. It sounds like they shopped it around and they had to go with the home, but that's happening right now. As I mentioned earlier, SmackDown has reverted back to a 2-hour time slot. People would rejoice, but it's only for the summer. It'll be back to 3 hours again, like it was last year as well. But yeah, little bit of a reprieve. They haven't got the White Six anymore, JP, so how can they possibly fill an hour of SmackDown without those fantastic lads and ladies? And other quick WWE news before we move on to TNA and AEW or WWE adjacent news. Janelle Grant has been sharing some information on her Instagram page, which she's set up and is publicly available there. And she's been sharing letters from the FBI. And as I noted, on there that she believes it's important to save it in the service of the broader conversation. And yeah, has been quite vocal on there. She posted a few things today as well, going through the consequences of signing NDAs and what it's meant for a life following that, and obviously the effect it had on the other jobs that she's attempted to do in the time since the allegations came out and since everything happened with herself and Vince McMahon and WWE. But just worth mentioning, worthwhile follow. Who knows? I think it's Janelle Grant CT on there. Look it up. You'll find it on Instagram. But yeah, but again, somebody who wasn't particularly in the public eye or particularly vocal outside of through her solicitors, as I guess had to this year with really with the amount of reporting that goes around it, become more of a public face, and is like I say, got a lot to say at the minute, JP.
She has, and she's incredibly brave. Just putting her head above the parapet in the first place, but not backing down on this as well. And it's just this idea that, it is this idea that the impact that all of this has kind of had on her, that the idea that, that the FBI are writing to her saying, identifying her as a possible victim of crime in there. It's kind of like, it's one of the things when you've got like the FBI acknowledging that this is the case. And yeah, she honestly to God, like the level of bravery, because I can't imagine how much abuse she receives from fucking morons on a daily basis. And the pressure of having not only a mad billionaire, like who is going to do his absolute utmost to try and drag this out for as long as possible in order to kind of try and break her spirit. But you've also got TKO, who in their silence and unwillingness to do a lot of things have shown like a level of complicity with with all of this. Like, yeah, absolutely fair play to her.
That's the thing. And I think maybe that's been part of it as well. It's like you would hope, human, she's a name you constantly hear, and you only hear it in like, stories about Vince McMahon, and for the you basically hear about the worst days of her life, don't you? And that's kind of, it becomes like just something you say all the time, and we've said it before when we covered her story on here. You kind of need to remind yourself of the human being who's in this situation, and I think part of it is hopeful that on Instagram and through maybe interacting and maybe putting her own voice out there, maybe it makes some of these people who we've mentioned before, realize that is a human being who's out there, and that is a very, very brave human being who's out there, and we obviously always send our best and be following along to see if there's any updates that are relevant. But thought it was well worth mentioning there as well, JP.
Absolutely.
But, a little bit of other bits of news before we get into AEW. And I guess it's AEW adjacent to get into as well, JP. Your old mate Carlos has been doing the rounds the last couple of days.
He of the bespoke TNA wrestling hat. He has confirmed on Busted Open Radio, that bastion of journalistic integrity, that it was his decision to pull TNA talent against AEW performers there during WrestleMania week. In there he goes, I don't like being called a little bitch on social anymore. No, they just call you that in the WWE headquarters instead. But he said, like, what was it? As Kevin Plank at Under Armour used to say, you've got to protect this house. What the fuck's going on with Kevin Plank then? Well, unless he's got like, he's under siege with lads from guns, like his assault on Precinct 13. You're wondering what's going on there as well. But the stuff that he was intimating, what was it? They've made some decisions. I think you find that's Turner in terms of moving nights. They've tried to block us in arenas and venues, and that stuff's real and it's out there. Don't be scared to give specifics here, Carlos, when you're talking about this on here as well. And in the case of Nick and Leon on a few of the matches that had to get shut down, we tried to make good and make calls and take care of business as best we could, which as far as I'm aware, that means covering the cost of flights and hotel rooms, not actually like, stuff that's relatively like chicken feed and whatnot. But yeah, that's what he was that's what he was talking about there as well. And that's what obviously WrestleCon had confirmed, that the hotel and flight expenses related to Leon Slater were covered for him missing the booking against Ricochet at the Mark Hitchcock Super Show that was on WrestleMania weekend there as well. So yeah, it is. And we've had this before with Moose being pulled off Maple Leaf Pro and other things like that.
Yeah. And, the obvious question that obviously wasn't asked to him because it was fucking busted open was, well, why did you approve the matches in the first place then, Carlos, before you pulled them? Maybe you should have had the conversation then, and maybe fans would have been advertised something that they didn't get. Like, I was going to ask you, like, do you buy any of it? I kind of get from you read out there you don't, but, like, I do buy some of it. I honestly do. Like, I think TNA, he's obviously a dickhead, and, obviously fighting battles for WWE or for his own hubris, including wearing that daft hat. I imagine there's a choptease.com/Carlos Silver out there, or some kind of website where you can get that TNA hat. Hopefully it's out there somewhere, but like, he comes across terribly in all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I agree he's the villain. But I do think there's a nugget of truth there. Like, I don't think it's going to be true about the venues, at least to the extent that maybe he's saying it. Maybe something happened. Maybe there was a venue that, I think it's normal, isn't it? We have exclusivity arrangements with venues, and we see it happen. AEW, I think it's Forbidden Door this year, wasn't it? They couldn't advertise it until a certain date because I think maybe even All In. I feel like that happened with as well. But like, there's been shows like that over the year. Forbidden Door last year, actually, that's the one I'm thinking of, where like they've not been able to announce it because it's within a certain month of WWE also running the venue. Maybe there's been something like that that's gone on contractually, but I do believe him on the AEW wrestlers front. Like, another gobshite, Top Dollar. He's a knobhead. Like, I don't believe him half the time, but he said, he was supposed to work Willie Hobbs, and I think it was Hobbs that he said, and AEW got involved and made sure that Hobbs had to go over, and that was one where you kind of go, well, yeah, of course, you're Top Dollar, mate. I feel like no matter what Powerhouse Hobbs was doing on AEW TV at that time, he probably should go over you. But I also think there's been a lot of stories, over Mania weekend and a lot of matches that we covered on the show where it was just like, not sure that one needed the AEW politics machine getting behind it. There's a couple of matches where it was like, not sure the AEW wrestler necessarily needed to go over there, or that we needed a bullshit non-finish so that the AEW wrestler couldn't lose. I think there's a little bit of that too, and I said it over the Mania week. Again, I don't want to get the words get lost or misconstrued. Like, I said it over then. I don't really care myself because the wins and losses on a Mania weekend, they don't matter. But why did they matter to AEW was my question. Like, none of that matters. Why did they matter to TNA? It's just bollocks, isn't it? Like, who would have seen these matches? Even that extreme example, Top Dollar versus Powerhouse Hobbs. The 100 people in the room and no one else. Like, so what? Like, what is it worth? These stupid back and forth. Like, I feel like there's a lot of posturing from his end, but I feel like there's maybe a little bit of posturing, or you can call it pushback if you want, from the Tony Khan and AW end as well. And all over nothing, really. What are we fighting over?
Oh, it's nonsense. I'd be completely agreed in that. And it's not like I don't think. See, I kind of think this is like almost in AEW's case. This is like a learned behavior because they've had to learn the really hard way from what WWE has tried to do consistently whenever they're going somewhere, like, just sort of booking a European tour the minute they're going to be, before an All In, various kind of setting on pay-per-views the same day now. And I think this is the thing where they just look at TNA as like, well, you're part of that ecosystem. So why would we give you any leeway when it's never going to be reciprocated? And that sounds a bit harsh in terms of like, do I think it's big and it's clever? No. Should it be built around like, being the bigger man in Tony Khan's case and just not getting involved, just going, look, it's not really that important in the scheme of things. Let's move on and let's just keep at least some kind of dialogue there. But it's the cynicism with which I view the TNA relationship with WWE, because if WWE are asking them to do it, he's going to do it. Like, and we don't know if that's the case. Yeah,
that's probably be that.
Yeah. And that would be, I can imagine that would be part of this. And it's in terms of the venues and stuff, it's just like, America's a big place, mate. There's plenty of venues around. Like, we've learned that lesson. Some of the venues that AEW are going to, like, there are like, and he also spoke, I was listening to John Pollock talk about this. He was like, he was very open about, we'd move to Wednesdays if that's what a TV partner wanted them to do. And it's obviously when Collision is on a Thursday, that's a Turner thing. That's a Warner Brothers Discovery. That isn't.
That's a real sports going on thing.
Yeah, it is, exactly, because they've got all of the, like, it could be the NHL or or NCAA. They're going to do stuff like that. That is going to happen. I just think sometimes with Carlos Silva, I just think he's falling for the trick of loving the idea of being this public figure who speaks out on this stuff. And that never goes well. We saw what it happened with like a Dixie Carter and whatnot. And it doesn't, unless you know how this game works, doesn't work. Oh, God, yeah.
Like I say, I think there might be a little bit more of a nugget to the story than we know from the AEW side. There's probably a grain of truth to everything he's saying, but at the end of the day, who does come off worse, even if all that is true? It is still Carlos Silva, isn't it? And past that, how he carries himself, how he answers these questions, and particularly who he spoke to in this regard as well. But again, the war over nothing continues. And on that note, a couple of little extra AEW news notes before we do get into Dynamite. Obviously, Triller is it's not officially dead yet, JP, but at least the AEW Plus side of it is gone. And obviously that goes along with the pay-per-views, which it did feel odd, and it did feel like it was about to go. Obviously, last go around with Dynasty being available for full price, might I add, but only as a replay on Triller. And obviously, they've been pulled, as has the AEW Plus service. I think everybody got that email over last week, so unsurprising news there. But on top of that, and again, it might relate to my AEW, where you can now currently buffer your favorite AEW pay-per-views. I'm going to miss Triller. It was a reliable service for me, JP. It never went wrong. I don't know anybody who had real problems with it outside of when you were trying to stream some bumfuck indies where the issue was there. And I found Triller a very reliable service, unlike my AEW. But obviously, with my AEW existed, and a lot of the the price packaging and with it, where it is. It's a good deal, isn't it? If you're getting a pay-per-view on top of all of the TVs, it's a no-brainer, which is why Gareth signed up. And he is the one in the GRAPPL universe who's paying for that service. But, part of the advertising is that there'll be a pay-per-view each of those cycles. So, AEW, most likely, probably going to be adding something around January time, JP. And on top of that, it looks like there's a summer pay-per-view in the gap between Forbidden Door and All In. Unfortunately, if you've got a streaming service like that, and I think Max is probably the biggest culprit here. They need some content for Max. They're going to be having a July pay-per-view that is currently believed to be AEW Redemption, which is apparently might well beat Montreal, which was something I know Davey was saying he might have heard some whispers on as well. But AEW having now trademarked the term AEW Redemption, as well as, strangely, Royal Redemption. Is that a Royal Rumble knockoff? Is it some kind of new battle royal? Is it a tournament? Is it a new belt? Who knows with the AEW? But pay-per-view calendar in the air, summer calendar getting that bit busier. JP, who knows what? We don't have a date on it yet, but sometime in July apparently.
Well, we kind of need it, don't we? Because obviously, we're going to have, what June is going to be Forbidden Door. We've got Double or Nothing coming up in the 24th of May, and then obviously after Redemption.
Depends how canon you treat Forbidden Door to.
Yeah, it is. I think what it does is you don't have the problem that you've had sometimes where you're going from Forbidden Door to All In. So you have storylines and then they kind of go on for a bit too long. We'll talk about it, how they're kind of negotiating that on the weekly TV at the minute, which they're doing something quite interesting, which I kind of quite like. But it's going to be kind of almost needed as a setup show to kind of for building into All In. So it makes sense to do it. They do good numbers in Canada, and Montreal isn't a place that they would have done too much. I imagine Speedball Mike Bailey would probably be quite a big part of that show as well. It's not a surprise. I mean, it's now 10 pay-per-views that they've done, they're doing in a year. It'll just be monthly.
And there'll be one in that January gap. We said it this year, didn't we? It did. I'm not begging for more 6-hour pay-per-views for us to have to review on podcast. It's a labour of love, but it's a fucking labour. It's a labour for everyone, innit? It's when you're in our part of the world and your part of the world, when people have got to stay up and watch these things. It is, and it does, wear thin, doesn't it, a little bit, when 4-hour pay-per-views were 4 times a year, or 5-hour pay-per-views were 4 times a year. That was one thing. Then it became 6, 8, 10, whatever it's going to be next year. I think the blue was off the rose a little bit, but we gotta be fair. We did say in January, February, it was a bit of a dead period, wasn't it? It was almost like the way Tony books and the way AEW books, they almost needed something to aim for, and they didn't have it. I think that's a no-brainer. That's going to happen as well. Again, it all makes sense with these billing cycles.
Yep, absolutely does. It also, they just need to raise the value of my AEW and just make it feel like a more substantial package than what it is. And like you say, delivering for HBO Max.
And it's never affected pay-per-view numbers either, has it, as well? You know, when they add them, Meltzer's been on that a lot. Maybe you get a slight percentage drop, but mostly the same people still buy the extra pay-per-view because they're just seeing the pay-per-view that's in front of them, and you're maybe not taking that step back to realise, especially if you're paying the big bucks in America, you're buying another one.
Yeah, that's it. And they're viewing it as that's the interesting thing about that audience for AEW pay-per-views. They're viewing this as like, this is value for money for them. This is something that is worth that price point. It's worth a subscription to HBO Max to get it slightly reduced, and obviously for my AEW as well. On those pay-per-views, I think their take home is, I mean, obviously through my AEW now, they don't need to pay off a Triller or anyone else, but you're talking about $2-3 million a time, which, when you're touting the value of the company and in the future and whatnot, it just adds that little extra bit of value for them that they're able to bring this in and bring in those kind of revenue figures. It's amazing how robust their pay-per-view buys have been. Just always around that 100,000. Yeah, it is. It really is the strongest part of the business as well. I'm not going to go into the whole Meltzer thing of like 3% of these people watch WrestleMania. No, mate, they all fucking did. They all did. Like, I don't even know where. They all did in some way. They got
more in common with the UFC audience. No, they fucking don't. Shut up, Dave. Anyway, hey, another business metric. We're going to get to the TV in a while, at least for the patron side of things. And good ticket sales this week. 5,000 odd, I think it was. I was told they couldn't do better than 2,000 or 3,000 JP, but who knows? All things looking up with AEW right now. But before we get out of it for the free version of the show, JP, and finally news stories. A couple of extras to throw in.
We did indeed. So, Ric Flair, inexplicably starting a fight with a man a third of his age, if that, has issued an apology to Ludwig Kaiser, has wished him continued success in there because he had said last week that he had been blackballed from WWE following a confrontation with him there as well. And this was during an interview with Ariel Helwani there. This is because of the heat between Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton, who at that point in time was going with Ludwig Kaiser there. And he described Kaiser as a 35-year-old German, as a 24-year-old Englishman as well. Therein lies the easy mistake to make. Yeah. Quite often, you'd make that mistake in there. And he was surprised to learn he's still on the roster and wrestling in Mexico there as well. And he said, "I'm sorry."
And the Undertaker's promotion, I think, is the word being used. Yeah, the Undertaker's promotion, JP. Is it rolled on? Who's dead? Whoever Pena rolling his graves. There's two coffins. There's two urns rolling around somewhere in Mexico. Mate, not happy.
What is it going to be a third one, which is just Paul Bearer? That's going to be there between like the three of us. What is it when they do? Is it Raya de Reyes or whatever the next big show is going to be there? But Ric Flair said, "I'm sorry I got upset. I'm naturally protective of my daughters. P.S. Tiffany Stratton is not your daughter. May look like she could be your daughter, but she really isn't. And I'm sure as you grow older, you will be too. Continued success. I apologise for anything I said about you personally. It was not about your professional skill, which I've heard is very good in there." Like, I'm sure this was all done with a capital at the front of each and every word in there.
It was.
Why is it more trouble, more difficult to do as well? Particularly a man whose hands are probably shaking through the fucking roof as well. So, yeah, it makes no sense, that fella.
He said today on Twitter something like, "I just wish everyone would leave me alone. Just want some positivity in my life." At the end of the day, on Ric Flair, it's like, mate, you've got away with a lot for just being Ric Flair. Jesus. I should be careful because this is going to 3 people. Like, I honestly think. No, maybe I shouldn't. I'll just say, if Ric Flair was dead, Jamie, I think if you remembered a lot better than the current alive version of it, don't you think? Like, it would probably solve a lot of problems, because I feel like when the day he dies, it's going to be like, what a legend, one of the greatest of all time. All of the other stuff's just going to disappear into the ether, isn't it? But while he is alive, and God bless him, and drinking himself into a stupor in bars, in places and stuff like that, he just, like, not that his reputation could take, hasn't had enough knocks already, but like, fucking hell, he doesn't help himself. Just constant embarrassment, isn't it? Whether he's being recorded on someone's camera phone or he's tweeting, like, he is not adding to his legacy. Is probably the the nice way of saying what I meant to say there. And also add to the legacy of this weird AEW contract that he seems to still be under, despite very clearly wishing he was under a WWE contract and wishing he could have done the Hall of Fame this year. Who was it? He said he thought Dennis Rodman wanted him to induct him. I mean, I guess Dennis Rodman would have taken him, but I don't think that was completely the case, Rick. But yeah, maybe just take Grandad's phone away. Maybe that's a better way of solving the situation than killing him, JP. As I try to dig myself out of this hole.
I mean, really, he should have been spending the last couple of weeks just watching the snooker at home. That's what he should be doing, a man of his age. That's what he should be. He should be watching John Higgins versus Sean Murphy in the semi-final of the World Snooker Championships, rather than tweeting about a fella who he hasn't even bothered to have a look at as well, who got roped into a wrestling angle involving his daughter, even though he wasn't there at the time, and decided to blame him. I just don't understand this. I don't understand what his perspective is, other than you fear for him and what he's like at this stage. So, yeah, there you go. Good old Ric Flair.
Well, speaking of old Ben almost dying, JP, our other and final story for the week, Dana White, Linda and Shane McMahon apparently were in attendance at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. JP, did anything happen at that? I don't know. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Just depending on the conspiracy theories you believe. I did enjoy seeing the news footage of as Trump slowly ducked away from the active shooter that he definitely didn't know was there. Cough, cough. Shane McMahon just kind of stood there looking cool like he did in this particular photo. Didn't look quite as cool at MSG this week, taking a picture with his dad's little plaque, but it is his dad at the end of the day. What can you do? But yeah, Dana White also making the news. Do you ever listen to Navarra Media? I've been Steph put me onto them. I watch their YouTube most days, and they were one of the hosts was very in tune in wrestling, and Shane was, and the other host was going, yeah, and he was cutting up, he was talking about how cool it was to see all this happen and see the Secret Service. Now you're getting Shane McMahon mixed up with Dana White there, on top of calling Shane McMahon a wrestler, which I guess is technically true, but that person very clearly believed Dana White was a wrestler, which again maybe you can see with his bald frame as well. But yeah, all the lads in town, JP, nothing to do with colluding on getting Zoe Hines at a job through Robert F. Kennedy with WWE. That's another news story this week. But yeah, when the McMahons are so closely linked, I guess you're going to get these little incidents happening from time to time. Give me a smile, though.
It did. I mean, the Zoe Hines one in there. What I'm expecting now is the absolute dog's abuse that Dave is going to receive over this. Probably from the likes of a Busted Open as well. But how dare he say this? She's worked really hard to get there as well. Also, by the way, if she's a Kennedy, given the stature of that family in the US, of all the names to fucking play off, that would be one in there. You'd be just going I'm related to JFK in some way, shape or form. But none of that kind of stuff in there. But it's very weird if you look at that White House Correspondents' Dinner as well in there. Just the Dana White saying he thought he was fucking awesome. And it's just that
was the quote, yeah. Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
The pro wrestler Dana White said.
Incredible. I mean, what was happening there? I mean, Shane McMahon decides to get his fucking sneakers on, decided to go down to his vest, start doing his jiu-jitsu on the guy, was it Cole Thomas Allen, whatever his name is, that the guy who was the would-be assassin in there. Wouldn't be surprised. Took him down with a chokehold, didn't he? As Shane's face went a shade of red that you don't see outside of a butcher's. Yeah, what a weird fucking world we're living in when we're doing this cross-pollination.
President Shane McMahon could happen one day.
Do you know what? Could he be any worse than this fella at the minute? Could he be any worse than him?
For the suit.
Yeah. Exactly. Here comes the money as the Saudi royal family walk into the
best than
Oval
JD
Office.
Vance, wouldn't he? So,
oh God, yeah. God, yeah. Fucking shit he is.
Well, there you go. There's all your news, and obviously, for anybody listening on the free feed, that is your lot. Like I say, if you want to, I'll apologise for anybody who's a patron who's by accident listened on the free feed and gone, hang on, why there's only 2 minutes left here? Well, it's because the full version is over on the Patreon. But yeah, if you are listening to us there, we will bid you farewell. Like I say, patreon.com/grapple for the extended cut of the weekend show. We're about to go into the previews, Dynamite, all the TV wrestling as well as all our other stuff as well. But yeah. We'll catch you people on the other side. And if you are a patron listening on the free feed, turn over to BBC Three now.
Bye.
I guess we say bye. See ya.